Buddy, this is Jerry at Berean Nation. We're just waiting for our other members to arrive for our book study in John Owen's The Mortification of Sin. There we are. You're going to have to put up with me eating because supper just got here. It is 38 degrees out there today. That's a little bit much for this boy from up north. So, there it is. I wish there was a way to turn the hold music off. So there's this place in Ottawa called World Burger. I absolutely love it. It's the only place that makes a half-decent burger, let me tell you.
Hello?
Hey, Dad.
Hello.
I think we're just waiting for Alex at this point, brother.
Okay, you wouldn't have seen Marianne's email today because you weren't included in it, but she has definitely scheduled the membership interview for Sunday. I am going to start as soon as I hear Alex by asking him to confirm or not whether or not I have transportation for this Sunday, because Marianne's backup plan for me to be there, since I really do have to be, is that I, or both of us will ask Ed. Well, Ed said that he was dropping me off from council Tuesday evening, but he's not going to get back to me this Sunday.
Okay.
So if I don't have confirmed transportation, I need to start. I'll ask you to excuse me for the first few minutes of book study while I phone around and see what I can come up with in my transportation.
Fair enough, brother.
I take my duties as a deacon seriously.
As you should.
Thank you.
Sorry if you hear crunching noises. I am eating.
That's fine. That's why I was late phoning in myself. I just had about 50 grams of cheese and called it dinner.
There he is.
Oh. Hey, Alex.
Hi.
Did you get your email from Marianne today?
Yes, I did.
Hello.
Yeah, he got his email, he said.
Yeah, I just got muted and had to unmute myself.
Uh-huh.
So, do you know whether or not you're confirmed to give me a lift to and from Bethany this Sunday, Alex?
Yep.
Even
Yeah, that's planned.
you're not going to be deterred by all the thunderstorms forecast?
No, I think I'll be able to come still.
Sorry, that wasn't clear.
I'll be able to come still.
Okay, so probably all three of the beacons at large will be there for the interview we have to give on Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Just if there's going to be any problem with transportation, this is when I need to know.
Okay.
So we're 100% to go, right?
Yeah.
Okay. On with the book study, and my apologies that I still haven't found my copy of the book.
I'm not concerned. Like we were talking about last night, it'll probably turn up after we're done,
Yep.
and you don't need it anymore, right? So,
Oh yeah, life like that.
so pardon me for just sort of choking down my supper, guys. We decided to order tonight because it's 38 degrees, and there's no way, no how you're going to talk me into standing out there to barbecue burgers for any length of time. So,
You shouldn't. I really don't think you should.
so we ordered from World Burger.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I think I have a new
I've never
favorite
actually
over there.
eaten- Sorry, go ahead.
I think I have a new favorite over there, and it's not their featured menu. You know,
Oh?
no, it's just their bacon cheeseburger. They put the works on it. It's got like pickles and onions and lettuce, mustard and ketchup and mayo and tomato. And it's like $8 as opposed to $12, which is anything off their specials menu. So
Ah. Always good to do it smart, eh?
well, I've tried everything on their specials menu.
Well, maybe you should have it your way.
We did.
Well, that
just so Dan can understand the gag, I held up a cup with a McDonald's drink in it. I figured I deserved a break today.
There is one drink I like at McDonald's. Strawberry Fruitopia.
Mm-hmm. And it's dollar drink days.
I'm sorry, Terry?
It's dollar drink days.
Oh. I wish I had $1. I actually wish I had several hundred, but part of my motivation for this evening is to get my mind off my finances.
Sorry about that, brother.
I just remembered there was actually a sitcom about my finances. Seinfeld.
A show about nothing.
Exactly. What's life? You can't laugh about it, right?
Well, I figure laughing is probably better than crying, so.
Uh-huh. And it's sometimes a last-ditch means of staving off crying.
Oh boy, did you see on Twitter Steven's verdict.
I try not to.
Okay.
I'm guessing he's one of the people because of whom I'm not on Twitter. Are his tweets as bad as the president's?
Kinda.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. And he says, you know.
Wait, let me swallow first. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. He says, faith is something that you do for what you can't perceive.
What?
Well, Hebrews chapter
That
10
wasn't
says
clear,
faith
I'm
is the
sorry.
assurance of those.
That's actually a really, really kind of common mistake, where it says they'll pick on the King James translation of a word. And look, I mean, it was the early 1600s when this thing was being translated.
Over 400 years ago.
Yeah, so, well, really late 1500s. But faith is the substance of things not seen did not mean the same thing that line means today. What it meant is faith is the conviction or certain expectation of things not seen. The word is very similar in the Greek to hope. It's not the word hope, but it's very similar to it, and it's just one of those.
I like the word.
Go ahead.
The word you used, conviction.
Yeah, conviction is good. Sorry, no, I don't have COVID. I have a dry house. And I'm still choking down food. So, anyway. All right. Well, why don't we just get down to it? We were in chapter 6, what mortification is, and I think we had just finished point 1. So we'll begin on page 36 with point 2. Maybe I can get you to read that for us, Alex.
Okay, point 2.
Yeah.
All right. A constant fight and contention against sin. To be able to fight effectively against sin is a large part of its mortification. When sin is strong and vigorous, the soul finds it difficult to make headway against it. The inner man sighs, groans, mourns, and is troubled at its force. David complains that his sin had overtaken him so that he could not see, in Psalm 40, verse 12. How little, then, was he able to fight against it? 3 things are required in this fighting against sin. Point 1. We need to recognize the enemy we are dealing with and resolve that it is to be destroyed by all means possible. The battle is a vigorous and hazardous one that deals with the issues of eternity. When a man is not very concerned and sees his lust as a trivial thing, it is an indication that he is not mortified or even heading in that direction.
Something said something to you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I do. I am concerned. Very concerned.
Yeah.
But sometimes I give in.
Well, I think, we can all be like that, right? I'll pick up my book now since I'm done. Yeah, so it's an indication that, well, certainly he's not mortifying sin, but also he's not even heading in that general direction, is he? Because if you think about this, if you're not concerned, isn't that really a basic indication that you don't consider this a problem?
Yeah.
And if you're not considering sin a problem, that's a big problem. Go ahead, continue.
Sure. We cannot go forward unless we recognize the plague of our own hearts. In 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 38. It is to be feared that too many do not realize the enemy that they carry about with them in their hearts. This makes them ready to justify themselves and to be impatient when they are reproved or admonished. They do not begin to realize the danger they are in. See 2 Chronicles chapter 16:10.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go see those verses.
Yeah, let's look those up. Start with 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 38. I assume you got your online Bible flipped open, so.
Yeah.
Oh, where in the Bible?
Yeah.
1 Kings chapter 8, verse 38, Dan.
1 Kings. Okay. I will go upstairs and grab a Bible. I've been sitting in the basement because it's so warm today.
.38-degree heat, probably not the greatest place to sit. So
29 in the corridor. So the main floor of my house is 29 Celsius.
it's warmer than I like.
Hey, it's not just that, it's warmer than I like it.
Well, do you remember that part of the Mario game where the sun is literally trying to kill you?
Oh, yeah.
Today's that day.
Right?
That's today.
Oh, yeah.
It's a video game, right?
Yep.
So I've never seen it.
I'll take your word for it. But it's most of the screen is kind of a bright orange, I thought,
Yeah.
So, in
Yeah,
fact, I even saw somebody turn that into a meme today. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So,
Well, at least it wasn't meaningless.
Dan, what do you mean by that?
I don't remember.
maybe that means
Always a good
the
thing
joke
for
is over.
Something to do with memes.
Don't be such a meme.
Well, I don't think I'm a blue meme.
Okay, well, 1 Kings 8:38. Whatever prayer or supplication is made by any man or by all your people Israel, each knowing the affliction of his own heart and spreading his hands toward this house. Okay, so this is probably.
Well, let's see.
I think this is.
He's talking about it in the context that we can't go forward unless we recognize the plague of our own hearts. So that does kind of make sense. They didn't always, these Puritan guys. They were almost as guilty of proof texting as some charismatic folks I know. So.
I think in the context of David praying to the Lord because his son Solomon is going to build the temple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And First Chronicles 16.
Second Chronicles.
Oh, sorry, Second Chronicles. Okay, yeah. Then Asa was angry with the seer and put him in prison, for he was enraged at him for this. And Asa oppressed some of the people at the same time.
Right.
So this is yeah.
Yeah.
This is King Asa. He was
a good king.
Right. He was a good king. However, at the end of his life, a seer, at the time, Hanani, the seer, well, it starts at verse 7. At that time, Hanani, the seer, came to Asa, king of Judah, and said to him, because you have relied on the king of Aram and have not relied on the Lord your God, therefore the army of the king of Aram has escaped out of your hand. Were not the Ethiopians and the Lubim an immense army and very many chariots and horsemen? Yet because you relied on the Lord, he delivered them into your hand. For the eyes of the Lord move to and fro throughout the earth, and he may strongly support those whose heart is completely his. You have acted foolishly in this. Indeed, from now on, you will surely have wars. And that's when it says, then Asa was angry with the seer. Yeah.
Well, do you think he realized the danger he was in?
Nope.
You know, I hate to say it, I've seen this, and fairly recently. There was one time where a fella thought that, he could just treat everybody as inferior and stupid. And so he made some remarks to the then church secretary. So this is a little while back, but he said some things to her that were out of line and extremely unkind. And he had no reason for doing it other than that she did something to change the word order of a report that he had to submit to the annual report that we do every year.
Okay.
And I looked at the original. I looked at the changes that were made. I've been a professional, well, technically I still am a professional editor. And there was nothing wrong with the punctuation and spelling mistakes that she sorted out. She was correct in her changes. And he said, no, it's already been proofread. There's no need to proofread my stuff ever. Don't you ever do that again. And as you can imagine, the secretary had her feelings hurt pretty badly. So, of course, she called me, a moderator, I guess it kind of makes sense, and said, so-and-so, hurt my feelings. We talked a little about that last night, and we had to deal with the problem of her being kind of snowflake-ish for a little bit. but then we had to, deal with the guy that, actually had the flamethrower going to torture, and that wasn't good either. So, because this wasn't the first time we had talked to the guy, I made sure that I took a witness with me this time. And I said, we have to talk about how you're treating the church staff, because this isn't the first time it's come up, and you were over the top mean, and even if you don't want your stuff edited, you could have been a lot nicer about it. What you did was not only perceived as unkind, but the church secretary almost quit and left fellowship over the issue. That's the snowflake-ish part we were talking about. But the really interesting and sad part was that he got angry.
Oh yeah.
And he said, you guys, you're making me mad. I don't want to listen to this kind of nonsense. You have no call to say these things to me, and I'm leaving before I get really angry. So I blocked his way to the door. I'm a fairly big guy, width-wise. I could probably block a door. Can't really block the light out by standing, but really short. But I said, "Whoa there, Jack." It wasn't Jack. Sorry, it wasn't Jack.
Okay.
Whoa there, buddy. You're not going anywhere. You need to hear this. And in case you didn't recognize it, this is stage 2 of Matthew chapter 18 church discipline. I've spoken to you more than once about this, and you and I have always said, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I'll try and do better, but it doesn't seem to be getting better. So I brought, this person here as a witness. And if you walk out of here now, the next time we're going to talk about this is at a congregational meeting.
Press 1 to mute or unmute yourself. 4 or 6 to decrease or increase the conference volume. 5 to extend the conference. 7 or 9 to decrease or increase your volume. Or 8 to exit.
At any rate, look, if you walk out of here, the next time we're going to talk about this is at a congregational meeting. Because if they're not going to hear the 2 or 3 witnesses, then we're supposed to tell it to the church. And if you walk out of there like you're walking out of here, don't let the door hit you in the butt and don't come back. And I'll have you trespassed. And then I stepped out of his way so he could leave. Hasn't come up since then.
Okay.
Whole lot more personal attacks on me, and that's a whole other issue, but, I'm not a snowflake either. So. Well, it doesn't matter. Don't say names.
I was doing my best not to, but...
No but. My point here is that's the very phenomenon that we're looking at right here. And he has no idea how much danger he's in when he says stuff like that. Because, and we talked about this sort of in the tiniest sense last night at the 1 Corinthians overview. When someone is put out of the church, Paul's phrasing for that is, I have decided, and I'm quoting here, to deliver such a one over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, so that the soul may be saved in the day of Jesus Christ. Unquote. That's really, really, really serious. The guy basically becomes, for all intents and purposes, an unbeliever if he's a believer at this point. And I don't know that, because, I really don't see the fruit in his life, really. I mean, love in an agape sense, I can't say I've really seen that. I've seen it a little bit in the sense of the word philios. There's sometimes a brotherly affection, but he seems to be very picky about who that affection is toward. Joy, usually only when he gets his way in council, and that's not very often anymore.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's a good thing I have really short hair that I can't get a hold of, or I'd probably have pulled the rest out by now. Which is why I've decided I'm going to keep my hair kind of short these days. But we've seen examples of this. That's just one of them, and that's not the worst one either that I've seen. I once, another lifetime, I once saw a fella who fell in love with a sister in Christ. He was a brother in Christ. He lived in the brother's house. And the two of them kind of started meeting on the sly.
Oh.
And turns out that they were meeting to have, do things that really should not be done. And I think the biblical word for this is fornication.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the leadership, and I wasn't involved in the meeting, but the leadership of the day confronted them about this, because that is not proper. And it's easy to fall into, but it's not proper.
Yeah.
And they said, look, we're not saying you can't be with each other. You can get married. You should get married. But this other stuff, it needs to stop. This is sin. And, look here in 1 Corinthians, it says, such were some of you. That's why I know that verse so well, because both of these sisters, the brother, whose name was Chris, and the sister, whose name was Mary, were both really good friends of mine. And it really, it broke my heart, because, Chris lived in the brother's training house. So he was going to have to leave. And Mary owned her own house. And she had sisters living with her.
Oh, boy.
And it was really the saddest and hardest thing I've ever done, to roll up to that house with the moving truck with Chris and Mary standing there with their arms crossed while those two sisters moved all of their stuff into the trailer, because they had to leave, and they had to leave yesterday. And they did get married, and I'm happy about that, but they never ever returned to fellowship where we were. We had heard later on that they had gone to a closed brethren assembly where they had moved to in New Brunswick, or it might have been Nova Scotia, but it wasn't on the coast of Nova Scotia. It was Nova Scotia. It was somewhere on the border area, and I wasn't really sure where it was, but so there's that. That's probably the worst and the saddest story I've ever heard that I wasn't directly involved in, but that's what that is. This is why we have to mortify our sin, right? Otherwise, we're vulnerable to stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't want to pay attention to this stuff, you don't know what kind of danger you're in, or what you mess around with. So.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I constantly pray that the Lord would give me a receiving heart, to receive criticisms and rebukes and even corrections, because I need it. I know I need it.
Sorry, something weird going on. That's all.
Okay.
All right, so let's continue. I'll read for a little bit.
Okay.
So, under a constant fight and contention against sin, this is point 2. We need to be intimately acquainted with the ways, wiles, methods, advantages, and occasions which give lust its success. This is how men deal with their enemies. They search out their plans. They ponder their goals. They consider how and by what means they've prevailed over them in the past. They then they can be defeated. Without this kind of strategic thinking, warfare is very primitive. Those who indeed mortify lust deal with it in this way. Even when lust is not enticing and seducing, they consider, while at leisure, this is still our enemy. This is his way and his methods. These are his advantages. This is the way he has prevailed, and he will do this if he is not prevented. I'll pause there for commentary. Anybody want to say anything about that?
Is Dan still there?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, he's still here.
Okay.
Oh, I'm still here.
Okay.
I didn't hear what you said.
Sorry, I'm also trying to do stuff on the computer.
That happens. No, that was very good material. But you know.
I certainly still consider this my enemy. Yeah. Even while at leisure.
Sorry, I'll get this down that I can do all this stuff all at once someday. All right. Well, you know, it's interesting. I know a fella, nobody here, that has a problem with pornography in his thoughts, and he falls victim to those thoughts at particular times in his day. So when he knows that it's that time of day, he's taken it upon himself to start listening to Christian radio. And I don't mean CHRI, the local stuff. I'm talking about Reformation Network from Ligonier. And, you know, or maybe throwing on a John MacArthur lecture or something. Actually, I started doing that after he said something too. And I'll tell you, what that did for him is that it disrupted the enemy's ability to play to attack during those times. So I think it's useful to consider the patterns that we go through in our sin and do deliberate things to disrupt those patterns. You know, because when we understand that, we can beat it. That's what it said. That's what I thought. I'll continue with the next paragraph. One of the choicest and most important parts of spiritual wisdom is to find out the subtleties, policies, and depths of any indwelling sin, to consider where its greatest strength... Sorry? Was that an echo from me?
Yeah.
Okay. To
You
consider...
are now muted.
Alex heard that, didn't he?
Whoops.
Please press 1. You are now unmuted.
Sorry, the mute got me.
I was starting to wonder.
All right. So I'll go back to where we were. To consider where its greatest strength lies, how it uses occasions, opportunities, and temptations to gain an advantage. We need to find out its pleas, its pretenses, and its reasonings, and see what its strategies, disguises, and excuses are. We need to set the spirit against the craft of the old man, to trace this serpent in all of its turnings and windings, and to bring its most secret tricks out into the open. We must learn to say, "This is your usual method. I know what you are up to, So to be always ready is the beginning of our warfare. Gee, I feel like I leapt ahead a little, because that's almost what I was saying, really.
Yeah.
But there's more to it. It's like, okay, I see where this is going. I'm not doing that. I'm making a deliberate choice here and now. You do your worst. I'm not doing that.
Mhm.
You know? So when I'm walking through the neighborhood and there's a nice car and it's unlocked, no, you know, I know where this is going. I'm going to walk on the other side of the street, and better, I'm not even going to look at the car. I'm just going to keep going. La-di-da-di-da-di-da-da. Oh, that is a nice car, isn't it? No, stop that. You know.
Well, for me, there are, especially, I love this time of year, but I also hate this time of year, specifically because women dress very, very loosely.
And when they're drunk, they behave very, very loosely.
I'm sorry?
And they can be known to behave very, very loosely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. And I know they're lost and they're just acting like, you know, an unbeliever. You know, man, it's really hard to not take your eyes off.
Well,
especially when they're.
I will give you a line from an old Carmen Ligadiero song.
You are now muted.
I wonder what happened.
Please press you are now unmuted.
Yeah, no, you don't.
While
Yeah.
you muted, I said, I wonder what happened.
Okay. Well, the old Carmen Licardiello, I think is how he pronounces his last name. The line from the song says, "You keep your eyes on the Creator, man, and not on His creations."
Oh.
God don't care what the circumstance. That's the title of the song. Check it out on Google. I mean, I know he's charismatic and stuff, but he's one of the good guys. I think he really has Christ in his heart. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, he's got a real faith.
You know, especially when they're jogging. You know, they're going out for a jog. And
keep your eyes on the Creator, man, and not on His creations.
Yeah.
He just wants your faith and trust in Him.
Yeah.
Even if the girls go by in their summer clothes.
Yeah. But when it's like...
Or lack of them.
Sorry, Alex.
When it's the fall and the winter, I'm perfectly okay with it. You know, it's like, because they're all covered. And thank God. It's just in the summer that... Yeah. I'm just going to end it there.
All right. So now we're back at point 3. It's a very short one. I'll read it. We need to continue to attack our lusts daily with the spiritual weapons that are most detrimental to it. This is the key to the warfare. Even when we think that a lust is dead because it's quiet, we must labor to give it new wounds and new blows every day. Colossians 3, verse 5. You want to look that one up, Alex?
Sure. Hang on a second. It's Colossians 3, verse 5, right?
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Therefore, consider the members of your earthly body as dead to immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and greed, which amounts to idolatry.
How about that? When the soul is in this condition and dealing in this way with lust.
Oh, wow. That's annoying.
Please press 1. You are now unmuted.
Tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems to be the night for it. All right, I'll start that paragraph, that little short ending paragraph over. When the soul is in this condition and dealing in this way with lust, it has the upper hand. Sin is under the sword and is dying. So you know what? Get out the Reformation Network. Tune in to an R.C. Sproul thing, you know? Read a good Christian book.
Stephen Lawson or...
Yeah, any of these guys. Throw on some Vodi Bokum. You know? This is a battle. Yeah. Chuck was great about a lot of stuff. And even if you don't agree with everything he says, you know, it's still worth hearing him because he was a really smart guy and a really dear Christian. So,
and now he's at home with the Lord with Dr. Sproul and Dr. Ravi Zacharias.
Yeah, how about that? I don't know where my place in the lineup through that door is, but I'll tell you, I sure would like to meet those guys.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, you're not the only one.
All right. So here we are at point 3. This is called a degree of success in battle. Maybe I'll get you to read some more of this, Alex.
Okay. Point 3, a degree of success in the battle. Frequent success against any lust strengthens us and gives the evidence of mortification. By success, I do not mean a mere disappointment of sin, in that it is not put into practice. But success, I mean gaining full victory over it and pursuing it for complete conquest. For instance, when the heart at any time recognizes sin and temptation in action, seducing it and forming sinful imaginations to put the lust into practice, the heart must immediately see what is happening, bringing the sin to the law of God and the love of Christ, condemning it and following it to execute it to the uttermost.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, I didn't do it this time. Well, it's a good start. It's going to come back. What are you going to do then?
Yeah. Well, spoken exactly like a man from Oxford University.
Yeah, this guy, actually. So, although I got to tell you, they wore really weird hats in those days.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Which place?
Yeah.
They wore really weird hats back in the days of the Puritans.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it almost looks like the British version of a fez. But it's black and doesn't have a tassel.
You want the one thing better than wearing a fez is? Wearing a fez and a bow tie.
Who knows?
You are now muted.
Let's get back on topic.
Sorry, you just
Please
muted
press
again.
1. You are now unmuted.
That's okay. I wasn't going to say anything. Go ahead and read the second paragraph there, Alex.
Sure. When a man comes to this state and condition, his lust is weakened at the root in principle. Sin's activity and actions are now fewer and weaker than formerly, and sin is not able to hinder man's duty nor interrupt his peace. That's happening in my life, by the way. That's I see this evidence in my life.
That's great.
Yeah. It's not completely dead, but it is losing power.
Well, it's always a fight, right? So, praise the Lord.
Yep.
One thing that deprives me of encouragement sometimes is that sometimes a lot of other people see signs of good in my life long before I do. I mean, I can't think of much more of signs of good in my life, new signs of good in my life this year, but maybe there are some. I mean, I hope there are, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't think that's made any better by this locking everybody in their own homes for half a year at this point.
Yeah, it made more of a difference to how I lived than I expected it would.
Yeah.
And not for good.
Yeah, but here's the thing. One of the blessings of being a follower of Christ is going to church. Okay, because going to church is gathering together with the assembly of the saints to help each other put to death sin.
Yeah.
So that's why
Sunday
I don't.
and Tuesday evening both, they were just such a rush.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
All right, continue the paragraph, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was at thus our victory of mortification, right?
Hang on now. Yes, you were.
Okay. Thus our victory of mortification will be realized to a large extent as we weaken lust, pretense, and enticements. We must implant, promote the continual residence of, and cherish those graces that stand in direct opposition to the lust. That's exactly what I just said. One of those graces is the local church. And the assembling of the saints. And also prayer. That's a very powerful one. Corporate prayer, actually.
Yeah.
But the number one thing is the Word of God. That's number one grace.
Fair enough.
For example, by the implanting and growth of humility, pride is weakened. Passion is weakened by patience. Oh, wow. Uncleanness by purity of mind and conscience, and love of this world by heavenly mindedness. You're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good.
Praise God.
Yeah.
That's not nearly as funny as when they tell you you're brainwashed. I wish I could claim the credit for this one, but it's, amen, brother, I am brainwashed. Who's washing your brain?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Someone tried to tell me that once, so I asked if I'd also been rinsed and dried. I didn't get an answer.
These graces of the Spirit, as they are expressed in various ways, weaken the perplexing lust that wage their warfare against us. Our victory will be further realized as the new man immediately springs to action and cheerfully fights against lust the moment it appears. We must use every weapon available to conquer it! Exclamation point.
Yeah.
Going back to and love of this world by heavenly mindedness. You wonder why all these people who accuse us of being so heavenly minded, we're no earthly good. They're not gaining any victory over sin whatsoever, apparently.
I'm not even sure these people really understand the meaning of the word sin. They live, practically speaking, like they don't really believe it. So I'm not really sure what all of that means, but I'd rather have a clean and washed brain than not. So
yeah. These are majority of them is from
what was that, Dan?
There's a passage I'm thinking of.
Do you know where it is or what it says?
Yeah, I just found it.
Okay.
Titus chapter 1, verse 15. Shall I read it?
Yes, please.
To the pure, all things are pure, but to the defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure, but both their minds and their consciences are defiled. They profess to, this is verse 16, they profess to know God, but they deny him by their works. They are detestable, disobedient, unfit for any good.
Kind of a sobering thought, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It is. And most times when I remember that passage, I just very quickly pray, Lord God, dear Heavenly Father, please make sure that I'm never anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
In Jesus' name, amen.
These weapons will secure a great degree of success. If a particular sin does not have some unusual advantage as a result of its nature, then the victory gained may become a permanent conquest. The soul may thus arrive at a great degree of peace of conscience, according to the terms of the covenant of grace. And that's the end of the chapter.
Yep. I'm just looking over that last paragraph again.
Yeah, me too.
It's interesting where he says, if a particular sin does not have some unusual advantage as a result of its nature, that's the nature of that particular sin, then the victory game may become a permanent conquest. You know, I think for those folks that are out there that suffer from sexual sins, really of any type, that has a particular advantage over human nature. And that is because God designed us to be sexual beings. He created us with two sexes. There's a male, there's a female. They were meant to come together in a very special, unique, and I would argue holy way. It has a context to it, and outside of that context, it's wrong, but that's what it was created for. And as such, once it's out of the bag, it's really tough to stuff back into the bag. And I'm not sure it can actually successfully be done. And I'm not sure that if you suffer from those sins, your answer is necessarily to get married, because getting married isn't going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I always go back to the car thief example because I think it puts things into perspective. If you've really given yourself over to stealing cars, and you really want to steal that Porsche 944 S4 Carrera model with the spoiler kit, because you just absolutely must drive this car, you know.
Which is coveting.
Yeah, I agree. There's more than one thing involved. But if you absolutely must have this car, once you've actually stolen one, you've kind of crossed a bit of a line here. And the next one is very much easier to steal because you know what you're doing now. And it's very, you know how to get away. You know what to wipe down. You know, you know what not to leave behind at the crime scene. DNA and fingerprints primarily. Or any real damage to the vehicle. Because damage to the vehicle will really tick the owner off and maybe make him press charges if all you were doing was joyriding. That's not what you want. So I think it's the same thing kind of with sexual sins. Whoa, you can't uncross that line, sonny boy. Be very wise before you cross it. And if you can't do that, well, okay, now you're gonna have you're gonna do it the hard way because you can't uncross that line. That's like unringing a bell; it can't be done. Thank God He gives grace for that.
Yeah.
You know, so
And particularly, thank God He gives help to mortify the sin.
yeah. I think that explains a lot as to why some of these things are so hard to deal with on a human level. So
Yeah. Well, that's why sanctification is synergistic. It's the spirit and it's us at the same time, but it's mostly the spirit.
yeah, that's right. We out here. All right, so we're at 8 o'clock here, and we can start chapter 7. Only believers can mortify sin. Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sometimes,
I thought it was,
and you guys might have a guess.
I thought it was still 7:30. Go ahead.
No worries. Sometimes, just speaking of the title of the next chapter, I wonder if certain individuals that I think we're all familiar with have this problem in that they just aren't able to mortify their sin because maybe they're not really saved.
Yeah.
It's a sad thing if it's true. But I suppose anything's possible. So,
But it's extremely good news because now you can repent of your sins and believe in the gospel and actually be given the actual power to mortify sin.
yeah. And wouldn't that just be something, eh?
Oh yeah.
All right. Any closing thoughts on chapter 6?
Actually, no.
Only one. Wow.
Yeah, I'll go with that. All right. Chapter 7. Only believers can mortify sin. What are the ways and means in which a soul might proceed to mortify any particular lust or sin? Let us consider general rules and principles that are necessary to gain true victory in our battle for mortification. The first rule is this: unless a man is a true believer and grafted into Christ, he can never mortify a single sin. Mortification is the work of believers. If by the Spirit you, it says in Romans 8:13, that is, you believers, to whom there is no condemnation. That's verse 1. Only believers are exhorted to mortification. Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. And that's Colossians 3:5, which we looked at earlier. Who should mortify? You who have been raised with Christ. Again, that's verse 1 of Colossians 3. And whose life is hidden with Christ in God, and who will appear with him in glory, which is verse 4. An unregenerate man may do something like mortification, but the real work itself, so that it may be acceptable with God, he can never perform. Some of the philosophers declare how they have conquered the world and self and are able to regulate their affections and passions. The lives, however, of most of them reveal that their boasts differ from true mortification, just as the sun, which is painted on a fence, differs from the sun itself. It has neither light nor heat. There is no death of sin without the death of Christ. You realize how the papists, which is John Owen's way of saying Catholics, in their vows and penances, seek mortification according to the principles of their church. Yet they are like Israel, who, seeking for their own righteousness, have not attained it. Why? Because they seek it by works of the law and not by faith, which we went over in our chapter summary of Romans 9 when we got to verse 31 and 32.
Mhm.
So let's pause and talk about that for a little bit. Only the Christian can put sin to death in himself.
Mhm.
Anybody else can only do temporary behavior modification.
Yeah.
Or if there is some form of limited permanency to it, it's because something was substituted for it that they wanted more than they wanted that particular urge or whatever. So,
Well, I actually heard Matt Chandler before he went all woke. He said he called contemporary evangelicalism a moralistic therapeutic deism. Which,
No.
you know, it's like, yeah,
No.
I know.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. You know, he explains it like the kids that grew up in church. Well, they just heard that, you know, be a good person, believe in Christ, and just be a good person, and try to do good works, and you know, or they heard, you know, pray this prayer and ask Jesus to come to your heart, and then just live however you want, but you're going to heaven anyway, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And yeah, it's really it's dumb.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, what was the exact term that Matt Chandler used again?
Moralistic therapeutic deism.
I think I need to refute that for the record.
Okay.
Okay, while morals are involved, I'm not really so much interested in speaking about moralism per se. There really are no good and moral people at our base. So to say that Christianity is moralistic is a bit of a non-definition. It has morals within it, but the point is not to be moral. In fact, when we were in our in Bible college, when we went through this course called Biblical Theology, which is kind of a course on how you preach through the Bible. There's more to it than that, but that's just the simple version. We were told that we needed to be able to preach a sermon that if we preached that sermon in either a Jewish synagogue or an Islamic mosque, we get turfed and not invited back at a minimum. You know, depending on what you say, where, and who, you might. Okay, so that's more than just moralistic. Therapeutic.
May I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
To call Christianity moralistic, I don't think it's just a bit wrong. I think it's a complete, drastic, fundamental misconception of what Christianity is. I mean,
Yeah,
God came to live the human life as Jesus to save us from the religions. The religions all have one thing in common, and that's the presumption of possibility of works-based righteousness.
Yeah.
It's not at all true that you have to be moral to be Christian. It's what's true rather is that God has to save us to open the door to the possibility of our getting to be moral.
yeah.
Unless I'm wrong about something. Am I right, wrong, or some mix thereof?
No, you're on the money with that, I think. It's
Thank you. I mean, I
it's
thought
true.
so, but
Well, the basis of Christianity is not morals. The basis of Christianity
No.
is a changed life that comes by the faith of heart that God gives us to believe in His Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, who substituted himself on the cross to pay our penalty so that we would be able to live his life afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the basic substitutionary atonement that he did at Calvary. You know, I don't want to be accused of,
the only key to unlock the door that lets us in to start to be moral.
Yeah, exactly right. And I know I've been accused of using Bibleese for using big words like that, but look, these are all Christian concepts. And when somebody says, "Oh, you're just speaking Bibleese," you know, brother or sister who are listening, let me encourage you. Get a couple of theological dictionaries, get a couple of lexicons. Make sure that I'm telling the truth, because everything I have said is definable, verifiable, and true. Please check this out for yourself. And if you're not interested in doing that, then why are you listening in the first place? Are you listening just because you like me, or you love to be insulted in what you're calling your faith, or because I don't understand that. I really don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the moralism. The second thing that he called it was therapeutic.
Yeah.
Now, therapeutic's an adjective modifying deism, and deism is something specific that we probably, if we handled that, we'd run out of time. But the thing is this is not just some therapeutic treatment, okay? The best way I could summarize this is, it sounds to me like Matt Chandler is going, "Hey, you're using your version of Christianity like a crutch." No, brother, this is no crutch. This is a full body cast. We are broken from head to toe. And God is the only one who can put Humpty Dumpty back together again without an error, without a problem, and without consequence for Humpty Dumpty himself.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to call that therapeutic, fill your boots. I'm not going to argue with that point, but it certainly doesn't mean what he says it means. And deism, I got something caught in my throat. Alex, you take over with deism, please.
Okay, sure. Well, deism is essentially the belief that there is a God, a supreme being, that created the entire universe and the heavens and the earth, but he left the earth all to us.
Basically stepped out of the way, and he's just sort of sitting back and watching now, right?
Yeah, he's not sovereign over it. He's not in control over it. He's not going to bring it to an end.
Yeah. And you know, if that's your view of God, Mr. Chandler, your God is very, very small and powerless. Because I'll tell you what, my God, and he's not just my God, is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And he is intimately involved in every aspect of the running of the planet on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis. He is sovereign. There is not one thing that happens on earth that he hasn't already stamped with his approval. And if you think otherwise, your God is too small. So,
or as Dr. Stephen Lawson says, you've got a puny God.
Yeah, Hulk, right? You puny God.
Again, that wasn't clear. I'm sorry, Alex.
I said, like Dr. Stephen Lawson says, you've got a puny God.
Oh, someone has a puny God?
Yeah, you know, like in the Avengers. Puny God.
The only Avengers I've seen is Infinity War.
Ah. Gotta watch the original movie there, brother. That's quite the movie.
Is it on YouTube?
Should be. By now, anyway.
I think you got to pay, though.
For free, I hope?
Oh no, they're starting to make it so you can't. You have to pay for it to see it now, and they're starting to copyright shut down people that just post it for free. So that's
So
YouTube.
I don't know how I'll be able to see it.
Would it be on something like Tubi?
This is the first I've heard of that.
Yeah, TUBI.
Oh no, I think I have seen references to it
Yeah.
about some other movies. Oddly enough, in some posts on Magic on Reddit. But anyway.
Oh, okay. I know I could find a lot of good Bruce Lee flicks on it. That's and I mean some of the old stuff, not like the weird stuff. Anyway,
We should get into that distinction sometime other than 7 to 9 Friday, I'm thinking.
yeah, more than like. And it's really interesting to note that, Matt Chandler in his Roman cultism, let me call it what it is, because I'll tell you it ain't Christianity. And I don't care how hard they want to fight about that. They have not preached Christ since Francis of Assisi or before. And the only reason I say that is because Francis of Assisi is the last guy I'm aware of that from within the house itself preached the gospel to the Pope. Because apparently he needed to hear it. Yeah, and he survived. That was just it, right?
That was the really unbelievable part.
Well,
I mean, a far greater hero of Christianity than Francis of Assisi, Jan Hus, didn't get near the Pope before he got put to death.
Yeah. But he did usher in the coming of the swan. So now the for those that may tune in later and not understand that reference, Jan Hus could literally be translated as John Goose. So his last name was in English Goose. And what he basically said to the people as they were lighting him on fire, he said, "You might cook this old goose, but one day a swan will come." And the banner of Martin Luther was the swan.
Yep.
So, and I'm sure Martin Luther did that deliberately, because I'm sure that was
probably
still household conversation in every household in Central Europe less than 100 years later when Martin Luther was growing up.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I really don't doubt it. Although Martin Luther's family was still Catholic, so of course pretty much everybody was. They were awfully hard on people who protested. So
I mean, a lot of people were nominally Catholic, but not really. Like Johannes Kepler comes to mind.
Yeah, there's a point.
And he wasn't really Christian at all, but I'll stop before I really digress.
Well, let's move on to the second paragraph here.
Good.
It is the duty of every person, whoever hears the gospel or the law preached, to mortify sin. It is his duty, but it is not his immediate duty. He must do it in God's way. A servant who is directed to pay a bill must first collect the money at the bank. It is his duty to pay the bill, but he must first collect the money before he obeys the injunction. So it is in this case. Sin is to be mortified, but something is to be done in the first place to enable us to carry it out. We have seen that the Spirit alone cannot truly mortify sin. He has promised to do it, and all other means without him are empty and vain. How should... Sorry, go.
Sorry.
Go.
We have seen that the Spirit alone can truly mortify sin, cannot truly mortify sin.
What did I say? Oh yeah, we have seen that the Spirit alone can truly mortify sin. Wow, did I say that? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, that's a good one to catch. I appreciate that. He has promised to do it, and all other means without him are empty and vain. How shall we mortify sin if we do not even have the Holy Spirit? And that is the operative question here, folks. How do we receive the Holy Spirit? Paul said that if we do not have the Spirit of Christ, we do not belong to him. And that's Romans chapter 8, verse 9. And that's the actual text of the verse. If we are Christ's and have an interest in him, we indeed have the Spirit and have the power for mortification. We see, however, that those without Christ cannot please God. Those who are in the flesh cannot please God, it says in Romans 8, verse 8.
Muted. Please press 1 to mute. You are now unmuted.
Sorry about that. The mute monster strikes again.
I would just go on strike from that.
Yeah, really. Those who are in the flesh cannot please God, as it says in Romans 8:8. The natural man is in a state of enmity with God and his law, and in this state it is impossible to please him. Man is only delivered from this condition by the Spirit of Christ. You, however, are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if in fact the Spirit of God dwells in you, which is Romans 8, verse 9. Our union with Christ and the power of the Spirit enable us to mortify sin. All attempts at mortification without a true interest in Christ are vain. That's a bit of a mouthful, huh?
Oh yeah. No, that's true. If you're not regenerated by the Holy Spirit, you don't have the Holy Spirit to mortify sin.
Well, that's right, isn't it? You know, in fact, I'm not entirely sure you'd even want to mortify sin.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe you
there are
would.
some.
I mean, ultimately, when I came to Christ, I was broken. I knew I was broken. I was broken literally from head to toe. And I needed somebody who could not just pick me up and dust me off, but fix the problem entirely. You know, I think Paul hits at this in Romans chapter 7, where he says, you know, the good that I would do, I can't do, and the bad stuff that I don't want to do, that's what I find myself doing, and I can't seem to stop. Was the implication of his statement. And
Yeah.
you know, if you get to the point where all you can do is sin and you don't want to do it anymore, but you just have to because you can't stop, that in itself, I guess, is a kind of a brokenness that the Lord can heal.
Yep.
And that's not exactly what my state was, but I can definitely catch the gist of that. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Can we go back to Matt Chandler for just 2 seconds?
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, when he's a pastor, lead pastor of the Village Church in Texas, I think, and he's unfortunately charismatic.
Really, you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's also a
spoke
papist.
about, you know, he gets like images of like images that get into his head, and you know, he once said there was like a pirate ship and you know, sharks running around the pirate ship, and I'm just going, what? You know,
I think if he's got a pirate ship that's surrounded by sharks, he needs to be very careful and watch out for that sneaky squid spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know where you read that, but it sounds like someone really inked some good words there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying.
Yeah. I heard that. I was like, oh my God. Well. First of all, I thought like at the beginning when I first heard about Matt Chandler, I thought he was spot on. He did talk about the gospel and the law. You know, the law of God and the gospel. That it's not, you know. He wasn't for antinomianism at all. He actually spoke against antinomianism, and he did command Christians, you need to obey Christ, because if you love him, you'll obey his commandments. And he was good. He was good on all of that. But then he started to just, you know, drift away after the Together for the Gospel conference, 2016.
Okay. That's where everything seems to have taken some kind of left turn.
Yeah.
That one particular conference, everything went haywire after that.
Yeah. And that's when he came up with his very weird pirate ship and sharks image. And then after that, he became woke. You know, at the MLK 50 conference, he you know, I mean, much like you know.
Yeah.
That was sad, because he's also friends with John Piper.
Yeah. I've never really been that big of a John Piper fan, so the whole idea of...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the whole idea of Christian hedonism is not something that's extremely attractive to me. Yeah, John Piper says he's a Christian hedonist. Now,
what's he been smoking?
Well, what I think he means, or I think he means us to understand he means, is that as a Christian, the things that he pursues that give him pleasure are all the will of God. The problem is with a stance like that is that it's extremely easy to abuse, or maybe I should say disabuse. Like, well, you know, I'm a Christian, and the only things I really enjoy are fulfilling the will of God. And God hates people who wear pink shirts. I must murder them all. You know, it's like, you see where the insanity can go right from square one. And you can't do that. You just can't.
Yeah, well, but this feeds right into the point I was going to make about John Piper, that he can sometimes be profitable, but sometimes something comes out of his mouth that's just so far off the wall that I cannot call him even close to reliable.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing is he's got some things that what he calls final salvation. I've read through his thing, and it reads to me like he's basing everything in the final analysis on works and confusing sanctification and justification and kind of commingling them to come up with otherification, I guess, and it's just really, something is really, really wrong with this. And you know, people that teach really, really wrong things with problems are often called heretics. Now,
Yeah.
I would not deign to call John Piper a heretic. I don't think that would be right, because he's the guy who I think first sounded the alarm of concern over what's his name, Mark Driscoll, when he was having all his problems. And interestingly, it was filthy language that gave him away. But whatever, and like filthy language in the pulpit.
Yeah.
You know, I know I got a potty mouth, guys, but I defy you to come up with one instance where I have ever sworn in the pulpit.
No. I'd be astonished if anyone ever seriously suggested you had.
You know, and look, Martin Luther was a potty mouth. You know, right back at the beginning of the Reformation, Martin Luther had one of the coarsest vocabularies known to man back in the day, but I don't think he ever deigned to swear in the pulpit.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's just like the total disrespect, and then later on the kind of things that Driscoll would do. He got into, you know, really kind of, I wouldn't call it abusive persons right away. It'd be more like hard shepherding, kind of like Apologia Church gets into. But that gave way to some really, really seriously demented and strange stuff. And hello, Miss Muffet. How are you? Can you hear? Yeah, here she is. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, if
Hello.
she gets much louder, I'll be wondering when I hear her in stereo.
Ow, 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 ow. Yes, you got your claws right into Dad's chest. Okay, there you go. Yeah. See, this is my cat. Or one of them, anyway. This is Lily. Oh, yes. Hello. How's the kitty?
I've come to a conclusion that she does not have laryngitis.
Nope, she really doesn't. She's my good girl. It's okay, sweetie. All right.
Yeah, I think what John Piper is meaning by Christian hedonism is God is most satisfied with us when we are most satisfied in Him. That's his famous.
But that's not hedonism. That's not the definition of hedonism.
Okay.
You know, a mutual satisfaction with each other is not defined as hedonism. Hedonism is defined as the pure pursuit of pleasure. So Christian hedonism is properly defined by the rest of the world as those who derive their pleasure from the pursuit of God or Christ. You know, and that's the thing that I'm objecting to, because that one there takes this sharp left turn right away. I made a mock one with guys who wear pink shirts. I have several pink shirts, by the way. That's why I picked on that one. Nobody can say, oh, I will wear a pink shirt. I even have a pink and purple tie that I wear with that pink shirt that looks really good with a blue or a black blazer. My point isn't that guys who wear pink shirts are evil. My point is the insanity that can arise from the ideas so quickly. Oh, you like that, huh? Oh, no, you can't go there, sweetie. You can't go there. Careful, that's my Bible. Don't you claw it up. Now, if you want this, that's fine. She seems to like the poutine.
Yeah.
She's licking out the gravy of the bowl, so it's...
It's probably not her first or second favorite food, though. It probably takes third place.
Does she like? Apparently, she's a very big fan of Russia, right?
You ask me, this is just one big fluff piece. Let's move on.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah,
so
okay.
where were we here? All right. So many men are troubled with the guilt of sin. At times, the arrows of conviction are piercing to the natural man. He may have brought to a state of concern from preaching, or he may be brought to a state of concern from preaching or some great affliction. He may set himself against a particular lust that greatly disturbs his peace of heart. But the poor creature, he labors in the fire, and his efforts are destroyed. When the Spirit of Christ comes to the work, he works like a refiner's fire. He will purge men as gold and silver, as it says in Malachi 3, verses 2 and 3. He will take away their dross and their tin, their filth and blood. Also see Isaiah 4:4. But men must be gold and silver before the refiner's fire will work. The prophet gives us the outcome of a wicked man's effort for self-mortification. The bellows blow fiercely, the lead is consumed by the fire. In vain the refining goes on, for the wicked are not removed. Rejected silver they are called, for the Lord has rejected them. That's Jeremiah chapter 6, verses 29 to 30. And what is the reason? Well, in verse 28 of that same passage it says, they were bronze and iron when they were put in the furnace. Men may refine bronze and iron forever, but they will never become good silver. And I think that really just makes the point well. Look, if you're not a Christian at the start of this thing, it's not going to make you a better Christian. It's not even going to make you a Christian. Hello. Hello. No, you can't have my Coke. You cannot have Dad's Diet Coke. No.
Has she ever tasted Diet Coke?
She may or may not have. I know she's tasted coffee and she likes it. She's forever trying to drink my coffee every morning.
Oh, she likes coffee?
Uh-huh. Actually, so does Pepper.
Huh.
Okay.
I'll tell you this, Tabby never likes coffee. Our cat when I was growing up.
Yeah. No claws. Sorry, she just came and started playing. I'm not inclined to throw her out tonight because I'm not preaching. This is more of a time of fellowship. So.
Yep.
I really like his analogy of from Malachi, chapter 3, verse 2 and 3, and also his from Isaiah chapter 4, verse 4. I really like that he says, but men must be gold and silver before the refiner's fire will work.
Yeah. I mean, if they're not gold and silver, they're just going to get all burned up. You understand what a refiner's fire is?
So yeah, they I don't know how to do a proper definition of it, but go ahead.
Well, do you know how they refine ore?
No.
Okay. Well, there's two ways it's done. Both of them are used in combination. The first thing that they do is they put the metal into a big pot called a crucible. The most effective ones used to be made out of clay. Some of them are actually now made of really, really, really heat-resistant metal. Not sure I understand the whole process of it, but so they heat it up to these insane temperatures. Not hot enough to vaporize it, but hot enough to melt it. And with gold and silver, everything that's melted goes toward the bottom of the pot. That's gravity. But everything that is not gold and silver is not as heavy as gold or silver, so it rises to the top and kind of forms like pond scum, but metallic pond scum, on top of this really, really intensely hot but liquid metal. Then what it depends how much of it is produced, but you can pour some of it off the top. But the danger then is you might pour out some of the gold or silver with it. So there are these intense blast furnaces that rain down streams of incredibly hot plasma. That's how hot the fire is. And what it does is it incinerates the dross. The dross is what rises to the top is called. And leaves only the pure gold and silver. We're actually going to discuss some of this in 1 Corinthians 3 because he uses the idea of how every man's work is tested by fire. And then he gives two groups of ingredients that men use in their works: gold, silver, precious stones, and wood, hay, and straw. Now, you can sort those pretty easily into two groups: flammable and non-flammable. Oh yeah, by the way, you get to choose the stuff you make, or the stuff you make your works with, but the test is by fire. Fire will burn all of the flammable stuff, but what fire does to the other stuff is it refines it and makes it more beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and then it says a couple of very interesting things, and I don't want to get into it because I don't want to give it away ahead of time, but there will be Christians who use wood, hay, and straw to make some of their works. And when the Son of Righteousness, S-U-N, Malachi chapter 4, verse 1, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings. When that sun rises, the intense heat of that sun, that fire will test all works. And some will burn up. But, and this is the really fascinating thing that Paul said, it's not like those people aren't believers. They will still be saved. But so is through the fire. That's all they'll be. By the skin of their teeth, I suppose, is another way of saying that. We'll cover that again when we get to 1 Corinthians 3, but some real food for thought. And the point is, if you're not gold or silver and you want to go through this refiner's fire, it's just going to consume you.
Yeah. I'm just breaking up. You're breaking up a lot.
Oh.
Yeah. So it would be all right if I just disconnect the keyboard?
Yeah, go ahead. Do what you got to do.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part, Alex. Mute, Mom?
Please press. You are now unmuted.
Yeah, I had the mute come on for me. He's going to disconnect and then he's going to reconnect because he's not hearing us either. Get off my keyboard. I will not be gentle about that. I still love you. Yes, I do.
You just don't want her on your keyboard.
She put her paw right in the middle of it.
And you chastised her?
Well, I physically picked her up and moved her off my keyboard.
Well, that's communicating. Did you get the required message?
Yeah, she moved.
And didn't try going on the keyboard again, I hope.
Better sound quality now, Alex?
Yeah, better.
All right, that's good.
Can you hear me okay, Alex?
Yeah, no, it's the video and the sound that was getting cut off because there's a lot of lag.
There's lag?
Yeah.
Like the way? Huh. I really don't understand how this system works.
Well, He's not on the same system you are.
Obviously.
You guys are both communicating through my computer and my web browser and my microphone and speakers right now. And that probably causes a minimal amount of lag just as it is. But
Yes, but that's probably like 10,000th of a second.
that'd be my guess, yeah.
What's Lily doing now?
She's just wandering back and forth in the area in front of my monitor. And every once in a while her tail passes in front of the camera.
Trying to send the usual cat message. I am here. Worship me.
No, she's not quite that bad anymore, but
Good.
Or
You think
or
she
I,
certainly was back 9 years ago when I first met her.
yeah, well, she doesn't live with the same people anymore.
She really doesn't.
well,
But
you
now
know,
I think you.
all cats.
Sorry, Alex. Go ahead.
Sorry, cats' lives matter.
I'm sorry.
Cat lives matter.
Oh, yeah. But does Pepper's life matter more than most?
Yeah.
You know who's picked up on this whole X Lives Matter?
Yeah.
Probably not either Pepper or Lily.
Jadmeet Singh.
Oh my goodness.
That's the leader of the New Democratic Party, for people who might be watching and didn't get the reference, because either you're maybe not from Canada or you're not, politically as apt as we are, apt versus inept.
Yeah.
So,
The fellow who was already at his level of incompetence as a Burlington City Councilor.
no, he was well above it. Seriously, he was well above that. He had reached beyond his Peter Principle. I guarantee it.
Beyond his, I missed.
He reached beyond his Peter Principle. But do you want to know what his latest thing was that makes me say that? He
Probably not, but go ahead anyway.
I don't know if you guys were aware of it, but there was actually a break-in at one Rito at the Governor General's residence on the property last week, and there was
No, I hadn't heard.
there was a fella. He was arrested without incident. He was a member of our military. He was carrying guns. I'm not sure he was entirely in his right mind, but he was charged with firearms offenses and things like that. And interestingly, he was not charged with resisting arrest or things like that. Well, because the police arrested him without incident, Mr. Singh claims this is racist.
What?
Oh my God.
Yeah, because he was a white guy and he was arrested without incident. This is obviously racist. Dude, if the black guy puts up his hands and the cop goes, okay, now put them on the back of your head and let us get the cuffs on you, and the guy cooperates and the police take him into custody without incident, that's not racist.
Yeah.
That's called police doing a good job.
Yes.
So, dude, quit smoking your own turban. I know the dye they use to make it blue is really powerful stuff, but
Because a turban is, after all, draped around one's head.
yeah, and I've been accused of smoking the drapes myself on occasions, but
Oh, yeah. Well, what's amazing is that while I'm doing my paper route, I see it in the houses. I see it on the windows of some people's houses. The fist and Black Lives Matter, and it's not just the Black Lives Matter, but it's a rainbow tile right behind it.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh boy.
Well, you know what? I think, like a lot of other things, this too shall pass. Um, it might take a while, and I don't mean this any. I know how that sounded, and I'm sorry for that. Um, I don't mean that in a humorous way. I mean that eventually somebody will grow a cerebral cortex and think this through. You know, it's just like critical race theory and all of the actual Marxism that is infiltrating our society right now through this Black Lives Matter culture and intersectionality and critical race theory, essentially. Um, Somebody will grow some brain lobes and realize that Marxist models of political behavior have usually only one ending, and it is the destruction of the society where Marxism turns up. China's in the middle of a battle about that right now. The Soviet Union has already lost that battle, at least as far as the Eastern Bloc goes, regardless of what Russia's sentiments may or may not be. All you have to do is look at North Korea, a communist nation, where communism has been oh so successful. Not, look at Cuba. That's not successful communism. They had to allow capitalism back in just to help communism stand up. So say what you will about how communism will be victorious overall because blah, blah, blah. There are a lot of problems, and I'm not going to get started on it. But you think about this: somebody's going to grow some brain lobes, and they're going to understand that when you take a group of people that are supposedly oppressed and incite them into violent conflict with their oppressors to produce the synthesis, the group afterwards, two things are going to happen. Number one, when the first group is gone, other groups will start to turn on each other, and finally, to reach the final stage of synthesis, which will be your classless society, which I've always thought of as the society with no class. But when they reach that classless level, there's not going to be a society because everything is leveled. It's all destroyed in the process. So come on, guys, grow some brains. Use them for something besides sitting on.
Yeah, this is either my generation and the generation following mine that have been successfully indoctrinated in the indoctrination center.
Yeah. Well, what's really, really interesting to me. Derek Sloan, a candidate for the Conservative Party leadership this time around out of 4, he's the only guy that's actually addressing this. Interestingly, Leslyn Lewis is making an attempt to address it. It's just Derek is really, really, really articulate about conservative ideas. So he's my first choice, and my choices.
Mine too.
They'd be my one too. My choices are going to go in this order: Derek Sloan, Leslyn Lewis, Aaron O'Toole, Peter MacKay. Out of the four, and that's how I'm going to fill in my ballot when I get it.
You are now muted.
Ha ha.
Whoops.
Yeah, that's been.
Please press. You are now unmuted.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
See, the
Glad you're back.
thank you. The drawer that my keyboard and my mouse are on, I've actually had to put in because the cat is right here. And she's trying to step all over the keyboard. Probably, I would surmise, to attack the mouse.
Yeah.
Cats and mice,
I
But,
was about to say that.
But she's sitting there right now, and she's dangling her head over and looking in and trying to reach in with her paw to smack at the keyboard. It's the funniest looking thing. She's quit now because I think she knows I'm laughing at her. But
but not exactly reassuring, is it?
She's fine.
Yes, but will your keyboard and rodents be?
Yeah, it's very tight tolerance. She can't really get in there easily. She can't just hop in there.
Like a regular
Oh, I wouldn't want
commentary.
to hop into something. I'd rather melt into it.
Play with something, we'll play with that. Knock it down, bat it
Okay.
around, I don't care. Yeah.
Talking to her?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 9 o'clock. I think you guys want to end it here?
Probably as good a place as any.
Okay.
Yep. I've had a good evening. Thank you both for that.
Yeah, I will. Just before we go, let's say goodbye to everybody on Facebook. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hopefully, we'll see you next Friday night for the next installment of the Mortification of Sin by John Owen. We're enjoying ourselves. As you can see, it's kind of a free commentary, kind of a study. And if you want to join us and participate in that, feel free. We'll always put up a link so you can actually get into the discussion group and stuff like that. Lord bless you. I'm Jerry from Berean Nation signing off. Keep studying the scriptures daily, everybody, just to make sure these things are so. Lord bless you.